Welcome to our lesson 6 in Adeptship, where we are talking about precipitation. The word to precipitate means to bring down from the skies, from the heavens. Precipitation is bringing from the etheric plane substance or qualities that we need in the physical. It's the process of drawing down from on high what we need to fulfill our needs here. One of the beautiful examples of precipitation in the Bible is in the Old Testament, where Moses and the Israelites were in the desert and God showered manna upon them every day, but they could only take one day's worth. If they were not supposed to stock it up, or else it would go bad and spoil. You see, the test was always a test of faith in God, that God would meet the need at the 11 o'clock line and the 11th hour, to have faith that the call compels the answer, to have faith in what has been called God's just-in-time delivery system. The way of the world is to stock up money, stock up retirement, stock up stocks, stock up real estate, stock up whatever, to ensure tranquility of mind. The way of God is to not stock up, but to depend on the precipitation. This is important because when God told St. Francis to rebuild his church, they took vows of poverty, and not just them, but other monastic orders like the Benedictines and others. And so we have to learn to wait upon the Lord. It's a very important initiation to understand the magic, the eye magic, the imagine of precipitation. So to precipitate, yes, we have to first imagine in our mind's eye. We have to know what we want and call it forth. When Jesus precipitated the loaves and fishes, he said a prayer. He asked God to multiply them. He knew what he was looking for. And so imagination is a very important part. Imagining, treasure mapping what we want. That's an important first step in precipitation. And then, of course, we say the prayer, we use the spoken word, we affirm, we decree. But then there's an even more important part of the alchemy, which is that we let go. And this is what Mother Mary teaches us in the mystery of surrender, the surrender rosary. We surrender our willing and our wishing, she says. My children, surrender your willing and your wishing, just like you would put your dirty clothes in the washing machine, and then let God give you back what he wants you to have. Let God give it back. This is a co-creative process with our higher self, the alchemy of precipitation. It's a walk of faith too. I remember when my last car accident, I had a number of car accidents, I said, I have to have a white car. And I would prefer if it was a Jeep, and I wanted to have a sunroof. And there were certain things that I was absolutely determined it had to have. And so I went and looked at different cars, and were not the right cars. They didn't have what I had ordered. And then this dealer called me up and he said, hey, I have something for you, come see. And when I went to his dealership after having gone to all the other dealerships, it was exactly the car I had been wanting. So it was precipitated for me that day by somebody who had exchanged it. And it was the alchemy. Had I settled for less, had I settled for something I didn't want, something without a sunroof or something with a different color, I would not have had what I was given. So it's important to know what you want and to obviously give it to God. I had another experience buying a car where This was back in Montana, I went all the way to Butte, and I needed a car, and I went and looked, and there was nothing in the dealership, and I said, God, I thought you wanted me to come to Butte, why am I here? And then, as I was surrendering it and saying that must have been a mistake, that must have been bad attunement, I drove by a parking lot of vehicles that were for sale, and it was right next to Excelsior Street, which is one of the names of Lanello, Excelsior. And I thought, wow, there's a car there. This is exactly what I want. And I went in, and sure enough, the dealership said, well, we just got that one in, and it isn't even ready yet. It hasn't even been to the main dealership yet. And I got it before it ever made it there, because it had been precipitated for me. One of the important things about precipitation, from my understanding and experience, is that it's very important not to have greed, because if we get too greedy, we block the flow of precipitation. What I'm saying is that if you need one car, you're going to have one car. If you need one home, you're going to have one home. If you need a certain outfit, you're going to have that outfit, but God is not going to have you stock up all this extra stuff. And if you're determined to stock up your supply in a worldly way, you're blocking the alchemy of precipitation out. I've had numerous examples of God precipitating in my life at the last minute in the most unexpected ways as a result of faith and good works. But I have also been numerously tested with fear and doubt and anxiety and no clear sense or vision of what's around the bend. And so over time, over the years, my faith is strengthening. And I can say, well, by the grace of God go I. I don't know yet what's coming down 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. And having had all of these various car accidents and surgeries, and we never know how long we're here for either. So what I'm saying is that it's really important to accumulate, like Jesus said, our treasures in heaven. So now, we create a firm idea in our mind. We make the call. We ask God to bless it or block it. It's very important. Bless it or block it. You have to be sincere. Bless it or block it. And we know we're not hoarding. We know we're not greedy. And we're working with God to open the way, His way, her way, their way, to what we are looking for, the highway. So that is the most important alchemy of precipitation. When I was working on the book Golden Age Civilizations in Ascended Master Culture, which you can read at goldenageofaquarius.com, or you can purchase the book, you will see that there were a number of Golden Age civilizations from the time of Maitreya's Mystery School on the Garden of Eden on Lemuria to the Golden Age in the Sahara, which came much later during the Atlantean period, or there was also the story of the Swernes and Casimir Poseidon. These were all during the Atlantean period. There was the Golden Age of Jesus Christ on Atlantis, and other periods where precipitation was just the natural course of things. The masters, the adepts, knew how to precipitate. And people who had the resonance and the attainment and the frequency to be at the level of these adepts and masters could precipitate whatever they needed. They could precipitate artwork, they could precipitate clothing, buildings, food, etc. And it was always beautiful. I remember a story from Theosophy where Madame Blavatsky, who was a Chela, a student of Almorian Kuthumi, was precipitating teacups. She could precipitate teacups. And at one point she got flustered because she said, "It's money I want, not teacups." I don't know why she was precipitating, meaning literally having teacups appear in front of her. It must have been one of those jokes cosmic jokes of the master, you know. We'll give you teacups. But there is a statement in the Bible that says, if your father knows you need bread, if you ask for bread, he's not going to hand you a stone. There was a funny story that I record in the Gospel of Aquarius, which is recorded, I believe, in the New Testament also, and certainly in the apocryphal Gospels, about how Peter needed some money to pay the taxes, and Jesus says, well, we don't really have to pay taxes because we're sons of God, but nevertheless, let's do it. And he said, I will send you to the ocean, go pick up the next fish you get, open its mouth, and you will find a coin in the mouth. And so Peter did. And then Jesus said, and tell the tax collector that it's from you and from me. It was precipitated gold. Right? So Jesus' life was full of precipitation. Same with Elijah. In the Old Testament, Elijah had a lot of precipitation stories, and we know from the teachings of the Ascended Masters that the soul of Elijah was one of the embodiments prior to Jesus, where his soul was mastering all of these things, together with Elisha, where, you know, the widow's oil did not go out, and we see that again in the New Testament. So precipitation is a very important alchemy of trust with God. It's a walk of trust. It's a walk of trust. It's a walk of love. It's a walk of love, really, truly. You love the beloved so much, you know your needs will be met. But it's also important to work for them. We can't get to that place where we're just waiting on the Lord and doing nothing about it, right? We've got to prime the pump. One of the important aspects of precipitation is to be able to give also, because it's in giving that we receive. So we must give, whether we're giving money or giving talent or giving work or giving effort, giving teaching, we're giving. So that's an important part of precipitation, so that we don't block the flow. Mark Prophet used to say, prime the pump. So we act also as if we've already received what we are asking for. And we give gratitude. Gratitude is a very important aspect of the science of precipitation. To be grateful not only for what you have, but for what you want or what you're going to get according to the will of God, always qualified with the will of God. And so you see, all of these aspects of precipitation come down to divine vision, the green ray, the pyramid of life. Do you know that in the ancient golden ages, there was no childbirth as we know it today? Two souls would gather, and through an exchange of light rays, they would precipitate their offspring. That's the level at which precipitation can occur. And that's another aspect of the precipitation that I need to bring to your attention, and that is that according to Rai Ernon and others who were adepts in the time of the Swearnese, and in terms of many of the teachings, even the teachings that we find in Philo-Tibetan, the book Philo-Tibetan, celibacy, or the conservation of the sexual energies, are important to really precipitate more abundantly. Now, we don't have to completely be celibate, especially, you know, if we want to have children and we're married and all that. But the conservation of the sacred fire is one of the qualities that really opens up the mind that is in us. Like St. Paul said, that was in Christ Jesus. That is why celibacy was always encouraged and made mandatory even in the Catholic Church for priests. And in the East, in the monasteries, So it's important to understand Napoleon Hill, who was a master at precipitation, and he wrote the books Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Rich. He really tried to bring that science of divine wealth to people. And one of the very important elements of this was what he called the mastering of the sexual drive. And he explained that a lot of men, especially who receive a certain level of genius, which allows them to accomplish and receive money in return for their genius and their offering to life, this happens typically after the middle age, when people are no longer so much focused on sex. And so I think it's important to understand this too, that on some level we have to raise the mother light, and the societies in past golden ages that fell because they didn't want to abide by that discipline lost their powers of precipitation. And so we're in a twilight zone, you could say, where we're not at the level of the golden ages, but it's important to understand the fast track to golden age consciousness, which is the preservation of the sacred fire to a great degree. Of course, it's always a matter of free will, but if your energies are moving from the base of the spine to the crown chakra, first to the heart, then to the crown, and you are entering the realm of Buddhism, Buddhic attainment, the realm of the Buddhas, you will more likely precipitate, because the Buddha and the mother are one. The Buddha adores the mother. The base and the crown work together as the alpha omega yin and yang polarity within the being that precipitates what we need moment by moment. And this is also a precipitation of our spirituality and everything else. So I hope this is helpful. I hope it helps you to understand the path of adeptship and how to walk in the footsteps of the masters who learned all of these truths in the East and in the West. God bless you on your journey towards greater abundance and precipitation. Like Jesus said, I am come that ye might have life and that more abundantly.